Hiya, I do. I'm 22. I love writing poetry. I write personal blogs. Live in East London. Welcome to my podcast, the Much Ado About Nothing podcast. And it's a podcast where I basically discuss topics related to things I come across on the internet, in the comment section, on Instagram. Even though today we're actually going to be heading all the way to YouTube. So, we're heading to the tubes of you. But before we do that, let's begin with a bit of a cheeky recap. What have I been up to? So I went to my little brother's carol night at school, secondary school, and the talent in the room was crazy. It was also a fundraiser for multiple charities, and those kids were singing their hearts out. They were singing like their lives depended on it, like they had bills to pay, mouths to feed, like they were singing like the rent was due. And I guess it kind of was, since they were raising money for charity, but they sang so good. Couldn't help but sing along. I couldn't help but sing along with each song. But yeah, it was such a wholesome experience. I also got my DIY hat on. I was struggling to sleep on the evenings. I came across this Instagram reel, where this person was doing like one of those interior home decor hacks. And guess what? I ordered the stuff to do it, and I successfully did it, and it was actually really good. It looks gorgeous. Basically, it's like a DIY bookshelf, using like wooden dish racks and sticky adhesive tape, and it actually looks stunning. The hack's actually by the Instagram account called @GrilloDesigns, so that's GRILLO Designs. I'm gonna actually share the reel on the Much Ado About Nothing Instagram story, and I'm gonna put in the highlights for you guys to get your DIY life on. I don't know. But yeah, would definitely recommend. Do try it out. But yeah, what else? Oh, obviously Christmas shopping. We're doing a lot of Christmas shopping, gift wrapping, the usual. But yeah, in less positive news, I unfortunately lost a friend. They didn't pass away, no. We're just not friends anymore, basically. It was a mutual decision to say goodbye, because basically it became clear that we were different people than we were as teenagers. And unfortunately, the similarities between us began and ended with the fact that we were friends in school, kind of thing. And yeah, I was hurt. I still am. Especially because I kind of really wanted them to fight for me, because there was like a trigger event that led to the whole discussion, exploration about, I guess, evaluation of like our relationship and our friendship and all that stuff. So I kind of wanted them to fight for me. I kind of wanted them to be like, I can't lose you. You're like a sister to me. I can't imagine my life without you. It sounds dramatic, but I just wanted to be that person, but obviously they don't care enough, or they just at the end of the day, like I said, we're different people, so it's like, okay, see ya, kind of energy, and it's like, oh gosh darn it, I just wanted to be worth it, but it's okay, because on my side as well, I could recognize that we're not that compatible. We're really different. It just wouldn't make sense over being really practical, so it's fine, but it's painful. It's Christmas time. There's one less person I'm going to be sending Christmas cards to. It's hard to come to terms with, especially when it's someone who's been like a big part of your life, because I'm an introvert. I don't have that many friends. I'm a friendly person, and if you meet me, I'm going to be kind and lovely and respectful, but I have few close friends. So it's like, damn, 25% of my friendship population gone, done, kind of vibe. So yeah, I think it hurts different when you have less friends, basically, and if you struggle to make new friends. But at the same time, it's so weird, but after uni, I've made so many new friends, met so many incredible people. Like when I was in uni, I almost felt like there was something wrong with me, because I just wasn't clicking with people. I feel like people weren't really interested in what I was giving, and I'm not a horrible person, so it was like really messing with me. But post uni, going to events, reaching out, talking to people, the energy's there, good vibes, good energy all around. So it's like, wow, what was that about? I actually hot cake. Like people actually find me funny, interesting, lovely. They're picking up what I'm serving. I love that. I love that for me. So it's like you win some, you lose some, but I'm growing into myself as a person. I've said it before, I'll say it again. More confidence, more self-respect, more self-love. And from that point, from that perspective, I guess I'm like creating and developing relationships and friendships with people from a place of where I respect myself, I love myself, and I don't want to compromise on my core values and principles and all that stuff. And it's a nice way. It's a nice way to live. It's nice to feel like you don't have to change, mute, dilute yourself for anyone, for anything. It's nice to show up as your full self. It's nice to show up as your intense, in quotation marks, intense self. And people are loving it because it's like they need that as well. It's like they love it. It doesn't feel like a con, it feels like a pro. And I hope for anyone listening to this, you find friends, you find people in your life who love the parts of yourself that you feel like you have to get rid of or dilute or hide. I hope they see it and they love it and they're like, give me more, because they're the people for you and you're the person for them. I hope you find that. If you haven't found that this year, if it's something you're looking for, I'm hoping and praying you find that in the next year, in 2024. But yeah, on a lighter note, I also went to an open mic with a friend and it was so good. People's response to my poetry was so heartwarming and I'm looking forward to going to the next one. Like everyone was incredibly talented and overall it was just a really inspiring space to be in. Like, oh, the event was called Flow Fridays, so Flow Fridays _UK on Instagram. So if you're someone who's like a writer, a poet, or you're curious about spoken word, you just want to see like some spoken word poetry IRL, please check them out on Instagram. And of course, as usual, I'm gonna share it on the Instagram account, so check them out. And next year, in the coming the weeks coming up, check them out, sign up, show up, do it, don't be scared. I promise you it's gonna be such a rewarding experience. And yeah, but apart from that, can I be a bit petty, please? Can I be a bit petty? So, speaking of this friend who I'm no longer friends with, I guess, they actually never acknowledged my podcast or congratulated me or even shared it. I'm not even sure they even listened to like an episode or anything. Maybe they have, I don't know. But they didn't like congratulate me or acknowledge it. And I just feel like side-eye, bombastic, side-eye, criminal, offensive, side-eye, because it's giving a hitter, but not like, I know saying stuff like this feels really intense and oh, it's being mean or being too black and white, and maybe they just, haven't had time or no, because I brought it up during like the conversation and turns out they had seen it and they're like, sorry for not saying anything, I've seen it, I'm so proud of you. And it's like, what do you mean you were proud of me? And what do you mean you saw it and didn't say anything? Like, I feel like it doesn't take a genius to, I don't know, acknowledge, say congratulations when something good happens to a friend, especially at this point when it was not like we've cut ties. I don't know, it was just iffy, funny energies. The kind of thing where if I typed out the details and sent it to like the dilemma section of a podcast, they'd be like, that person's not your friend. Like, that's weird behavior. You should keep an eye on them kind of thing. That's the kind of thing they would say. And at the end of the day, we're no longer friends, so technically they would be right in saying that that's weird behavior, that's funny behavior, that person's not your friend. Because at the end of the day, now we're no longer friends, so yeah, so just, trust your intuition, guys. Trust your intuition. If you feel like something's off, if you feel like something's funny, if you feel like someone's done or not done something that's important to you, or something that's iffy, don't gloss over it. Like, if it's important to you, it's important to you, and it's fine. You're not crazy for feeling some way feeling weird about it, it's okay. You're in the right. Okay. So yeah. What else? Let me think. I think that's pretty much it for you guys in terms of a recap. So yeah, a lot of stuff kinda has happened, but oh well, we move. So let's move over to the comment of the week. Let's get into it. So yeah, as I said, we're gonna be heading over to YouTube today. The comment of the week is actually gonna be a really long one, and it's obviously gonna be from the YouTube comment section. Yeah, it's kind of a bit problematic, but we all know that the kind of problematic ones are usually the ones we're discussing, right? So let's go into it. So the comment of the week reads, I don't think that's her scene. This channel is pure escapism, an Instagram curated life, not reality. Everything's beautiful, even her friends. Almost everyone is stiff and naturally good looking, I've noticed. No fatties or uggers like me need apply. Side face, laughing emoji. It's just like a kind of docu version of that Netflix thing, Emily in Paris. More in Paris. An impossibly beautiful life with impossibly beautiful people attending Chanel soirees and eating vegan blinis and reading Sartre. So murdered kids from the banlieue doesn't really fit. This sounds mean, I'm aware, but it's honestly not meant to be. I enjoy the escapism and living vicariously through someone who's young and beautiful. Let's give some time for that to settle, because that was a lot. And in terms of, so if you want to read the comment, head over to the Instagram account Much Ado About Nothing Pod, so you can read along. But yeah, Sartre, I think it's like a French thinker. And Emily in Paris, obviously that show about some American lady in Paris, really romanticized. And banlieue was like, I guess the equivalent of an estate in the UK, like in London, like where people from low socioeconomic backgrounds live, like maybe like a council flat kind of energy, but like just outside of like the suburbs, but not like suburbs. In like when you think about the US and suburbs, I feel like people who live in suburbs might be kind of wealthy, maybe, or not like wealthy, maybe like middle class, but in this regard, it's like more like working class banlieue. But yeah, that's like a little glossary for you, I guess. But yeah, so the context of this comment is there's a YouTuber and content creator called Moya Mawini. I think that's how it's pronounced. And she does travel vlogs and just like day in the lifestyle vlogs. The best way I think I can describe the vibe of her content is Pinterest core. Like, she's beautiful, her home's beautiful, her shots are beautiful, her narration is beautiful, everything is curated and presented so delicately, and everything's gorgeous and beautiful. She's Irish, she's Irish and Indonesian, I believe. She's really likable. She has a really likable presence. She seems fun, sweet, and just cool. Like, she's a pretty person living a life that's pretty with mostly pretty people. And it's like a life that people could only dream of. Kind of thing, like a lot of people could only dream of. So yeah, someone made a comment bringing up the fact that her video overly romanticized the Paris where she lives. And this was around the time where there were actually riots taking place in France because a French Arab boy was murdered by the police. Like, buildings and cars in places that in Marseille and stuff were being set on fire. I think a shop, I don't know if it's like a Nike shop or like a Chanel shop, one of those big name brand shops, literally got like smashed in. Their windows were smashed in. There was a curfew on like the subway and buses and stuff. It was a big deal. It was a really big deal. Like, there was videos circulating on Instagram of people running and being scared and all that kind of stuff. It was really deep, it was really serious, but it was a scary time. But obviously she just posted her content like business as usual, cute vibes, cute aesthetics, perfect, pretty. But the only thing she did which kind of acknowledged what was going on was pin her comment where she said at the time of posting she was actually in Greece and not in France. So, and she was like, I'm safe guys, I'm fine, kind of thing, don't worry about me, I'm actually in Greece right now. But yeah, the content she posted was pretty much the same idyllic vibe, happy vibes, yada yada yada. But obviously, when you're aware of the real context of something that's seemingly beautiful, so obviously the context would be Paris, literally people rioting in Paris, and you just see a cute day in the life, go out, go drink your coffee. It feels weird. I don't know if the correct term's like cognitive dissonance. Feel free to correct me on that. I can't be bothered to Google it right now, but like it just feels off. You feel off. You feel weird. It's like, okay, I was gonna say it feels dystopian, but that's a bit extra. But you know what I mean? When like you're seeing something beautiful, but you know that in reality there's messy stuff happening in the background, and the person who's showing you this beauty is not acknowledging it. It's just weird. It might not really be something that you necessarily care about, but it makes me feel weird. It bugs me out. So yeah. So for someone like me specifically, because obviously this is a podcast about politics. I study politics at uni. Anyone who knows me knows I could literally go on about politics. So I'm obviously. Oh yeah, sorry, you don't know. I need to stop saying obviously. Um, assuming you know much about my life. Okay, so obviously I study politics and French, and in the third year of uni, I was in France, in the south of France, for my study placement as part of my degree. So I have technically lived in France for a year. But yeah, that experience involved incidences where I did experience racism, and within the academic context, I've learned about the neglect of people from low socioeconomic backgrounds in France, learned about police brutality. If you are in the UK and you study French, maybe I think GCSE or A level, at like both those levels, you might have possibly come across the film Latin, which explores these themes as well, like racism in France, the, I guess, vestiges of immigration following the Second World War, and just the racial dynamics, tensions, and stuff between people in French society, between the police and people from low socioeconomic backgrounds who are people of color, all that stuff. So I'm kind of familiar with that kind of information. So I know that France and how it's depicted in these Pinterest girlies vlogs, videos, it's like one side of a picture. And as someone who is black and dark skinned, because I think it's important to acknowledge that as well, because obviously people are like, well, like when we're thinking about race in this example, when we're thinking about race, there's a tendency to kind of put everyone into one group, whether it's Asian people or brown people or black people. But the thing is, the lighter you are, the more likely you are to benefit from whiteness to some degree, and the darker you are, the more likely you are to kind of be on the opposite end of that spectrum. So for me, for example, I'm dark skinned, so I am visibly black, if that makes sense. But someone might be black, but they might be black and Irish or black and English. So they might have lighter skin, fairer skin, different hair texture, where you could tell they're not white, but you also can't necessarily simply stare at them and be like, this is a black person. So there's some sort of racial ambiguity, and because whiteness is afforded innocence and certain ideals that are attached to whiteness, they can benefit from that because they're kind of exist in proximity to it, while I would exist further away from it, if that makes sense. But yeah, that's a lot to get into, but just worth thinking about while talking about something like this, or just something worth thinking about in general in life. And when thinking about people's experiences of being racialized people in the West, because her being Asian, she is racialized in a certain way. Moya, she's like Indonesian and Irish, so she's technically mixed. But her experience of having a racialized identity would be different from mine. My experience of having a racialized identity, because she exists in proximity to whiteness, while I exist further away from it. But in the same degree, my proximity to whiteness would probably exist in the form of me, the fact that I live in London, and my education looked a certain way, the way I speak, my accent, all those things afford me a level of privilege because it's close to whiteness. And people who might have live in like Nigeria, for example, and speak a different way will not have those privileges if they live in like a low socioeconomic neighborhood, for example, and they speak a certain way. It's like if both of us, like obviously we both look black, But if both of us go to the hospital and we're trying to advocate for ourselves, the health professionals are more likely to listen to me and take me more seriously because I'm speaking similar to them. I'm speaking similar to the standard, or really close to the standard that they respect. And they'd, even if they would understand this other person, they'd be like, it might sound really out of pocket and be like, damn, that's rude, that's mean, or you're just literally making this stuff up. It's unfortunately really true. And my mom doesn't speak like me. Like, I feel like I'm more confident, I guess, code switching in that respect. I'm more confident speaking like this in like a professional capacity, basically. So when it comes to stuff where it involves advocating for you, whether it's like for bills and stuff, or if the phone company is doing dodgy stuff, I'm in a position where I can speak in a way that they might take me more seriously than they would her, even if the things we were complaining about were both equally valid. Yeah, I hope that makes sense. I feel like that's the kind of thing that if you are like black or brown, it's like you understand the idea of having to advocate for your family who are first gen immigrants, and you understand having to advocate for your family who are first gen immigrants because basically you exist closer to whiteness, because if you're both speaking on the phone, you can get away with being seen as someone who's white while they can't, kind of thing. It sounds so deep. I'm sorry. Okay, anyway, let's move on. I've spent a lot of time on that bit, haven't I? Okay, so you're probably, in regards to Moya specifically and her failure to mention or acknowledge, or I guess burst the bubble she'd created with her in terms of her content, you'd be like, what do you expect her to do? It's her job. It's not a crime to not mention every breaking news kind of vibe thing in your content if that's not the vibe of it. But the thing is, I feel like I just wish she'd simply acknowledge it and mention how awful it is and hint at it as a person of color as well. And yeah, she can do whatever she wants. Like, this is literally my opinion. It really doesn't matter. She can do whatever she wants, obviously, but it just makes me feel a certain way because I guess my core values, my principles look a certain way. Maybe hers might not, and that's okay. And this might just simply be a reflection of the fact that I have an unhealthy parasocial relationship with her where I expect something from her when she owes me nothing. So there, another one. Parasocial relationships, ding ding ding. But yeah, I would just have wanted her to simply acknowledge it. But also I feel like as the COVID-19 pandemic was unraveling and there was like a spike in anti-Asian hate crimes, she did mention it in her videos, like, because her videos aren't simply like, there's bits where she speaks to the camera, she speaks to the audience, she gives us an update, she's honest about it. If she's struggling with something, she's sad about it, she says it. So yeah, during that period, she did mention how the rise in anti-Asian hate crimes was something that concerned her and how it affected her, and how she, even though it hadn't affected her as an individual, how she was concerned for her family and for all her friends and other people who belonged in her community. And it's an understandable thing. Like, I would feel the same and be the same way and say the same thing if I found myself in that position. But what I'm trying to say is, in that instant, we see that she does birth the illusion of perfection and this being idyllic because it kind of affected her more directly. And it's like, how is it like, how come it's worth speaking up for that but not another thing? And you're probably like, because it affects her, so of course she can say it. But that's the issue though. That's my issue with it. It's like speaking up against injustice when it affects only you, when I believe that we should speak up about and educate people about injustice, even when it doesn't directly affect us in any way. I hope that's clear. And obviously, in this scenario where a boy was killed by the police for reasons which are linked to racism, we see that she doesn't even really mention it. She just highlights the fact that she's safe, but she doesn't mention or even try to educate people about the riots. And it's not like there's some people who you're like, okay, this is not their steez, they didn't go uni, they're not the best person to talk about. Not saying that going to uni means you're better at speaking about certain political stuff, but you know how there's some people who, even if they don't go uni, it's something they're interested in, and if they're even activists, they feel comfortable using certain language and just, I guess, playing the role of an educator. Maybe she might not feel like she is, but from the outside perspective, I think she is someone who's able to do so, and do so to an audience that really idolize her and respect her. Like, you literally just have to dip into the comments to see how people are obsessed with her and almost speak about her like she's non-human, in the sense like the positive comments are crazy. Like, you can see there's a dynamic where it's like, she's at the top and they are down and they're looking up at her. I guess her content would also fall under the category of aspirational content, and maybe that's why that dynamic exists. But that also means she has a lot of sway over these people, as you can tell, even with the fact that I'm making this whole episode about her, and the fact that I feel, I guess, let down. But that literally in itself reflects the extent to which the parasocial relationship she holds and exists puts her in a position of so much power, even if she might not necessarily want to acknowledge it or categorize it or label it in those terms. But yeah, I do believe Moya benefits from her proximity to whiteness and to wealth. And obviously she's a content creator. I don't really know stuff about her socioeconomic background, in the sense that all I can say is I feel like she's middle class, but I don't know the details. I don't know how her parents grew up. I don't know her experience growing up. All I know is she seems like she didn't really struggle. I feel like people who struggled with money, they let you know they struggled with money. They're signs. They will tell you. There's just hints, there's signals. But yeah, but now, because of her job, and I guess partly because of who she is, she gets invited to things by big well-known brands. Obviously, that person mentioned Chanel soirees, and is a job, obviously, but she is afforded privilege that a lot of people don't have, which person commenting acknowledges. And according to them, she's a beautiful, rich person surrounded by beautiful, non-fat, rich people. Which I also think is funny that the person mentioned the fact that everyone in her circle is like slim, white, and rich, and how her content, which is slim, rich, white people having a good time, how that is meant to be escapist and idyllic. Like, I don't know, that in itself is like side eye. But yeah, so though her benefits might stem from her unique job as a young, attractive content creator, those privileges still exist. And I feel like when the messiness of the real world is erased and rubbed out, especially when it affects and concerns a certain demographic, it can be hard not to feel like there's something almost sinister happening. And the thing is, it's not necessarily, it might not be an active thing, but it's like, I feel like it's there, you can feel it. And I don't know, I feel like it's worth acknowledging the perspective of those who aren't as lucky. I think you can still create content where you're showing their pretty bits, but you can still be like, even if you don't show the not pretty bits, mentioning the not pretty bits, if that makes sense. Yeah, what do you guys think? Maybe I'm just being too critical. Maybe I'm just being hypercritical, but so what? So what? Like, it's not the end of the world. It really isn't. But yeah, on a personal level, I know this might sound controversial, but in her videos as well, black people simply do not exist. And we're talking about Paris, which is a city like London. And I think it's funny because someone made a similar comment about Emily in Paris. So you know Julien, who's played by Samuel Arnold. He's probably one of, if not the only black person I recall being on the show. You probably don't even recognize his name really, unless like you're a really big fan of the show and him as an actor. But if you're not the black gay guy, yeah, he's literally like the only black person in the show about someone being in Paris. Okay. And also a similar thing was said about people of Maghreb origin, which is like North African descent living in France who are French citizens. Yeah, they don't seem to really exist. Hijabis don't really seem to really exist in Emily in Paris. But similarly, these kind of people don't visibly exist in Moya's content. And correct me if I'm wrong, it's weird to think that Emily in Paris, which is considered escapist and a romanticization of Paris, it's weird to think that a show that holds or is tied to these labels does not have Black and Arab people who visibly exist in them. It's like, what does that say about why? What does it say when we think of romanticization of a place? It's free of Black and Arab people. Like, why is the romanticized version of a place, which is meant to be a pretty, almost perfect, unrealistic version of a place, why does it not have Black and Arab people? Why is it only white, skinny people? White, skinny, rich people? Why is it only white, rich, skinny people? And similarly, in Moya's idyllic videos, these people do not exist. And in the words of the commenter, in her videos, there's no fatties or uggers. Which is peak. Peak to say, but it sounds like they're the kind of person who, even if stuff sounds off, they just like to say things the way it is, even if they're not using words that you might be happy with, even if they're using language that you might consider problematic. And I respect them for that. I know this might be controversial, but it's true. I feel like that comment really broke the illusion in the comment section, because there's literally no other comment like that apart from this. And there was actually another commenter that responded to the person who was critiquing the over romanticization of Paris in the content, which is the original comment. This comment I'm discussing is in response to. And that person was much, much harsher, and they were like, basically, get over yourselves. If you want to see reality, just go read the news, go watch the news. They were quite harsh about it, and I found that really weird and kind of disgusting that it feels like this is a safe space for people who are so attached to the idea of being comforted, even if that comfort means literally overlooking, blotting out, ignoring the painful realities of the less fortunate in society. I thought that was really weird and twisted, to be honest. But also, I feel like it's important to note that things like aesthetics or beauty might seem frivolous and never that deep, which I feel like people might think listening to this. But beauty and what is attractive or ideal or aspirational is so deeply linked with white supremacy. And we see that in the way we think about what we think of as conventional beauty and attractiveness. Like, beauty and what is beautiful has always excluded some people, but when your escapist content or fantasy does not include Black and brown people and those who exist further away from whiteness, what exactly does that say? Especially when your fantasy involves ignoring or blotting out racism, when racism and Islamophobia are so pervasive in French society and not even in a subtle way. Yeah, I really do want to know what you guys think though, because this is not a black and white topic, it's not a black and white issue. In fact, you might consider it to be a non-issue, but I think it's something that's interesting to discuss at least. And yeah, honestly, it's probably obvious from this episode, but also just, I guess, the other episodes. I'm not a fan of neutrality. I'm not a fan of being like, this thing, certain things are political, certain things are not. I'm not a fan of ignoring reality. Even in like fantasy films and stuff or shows, I feel like even they can be rooted in reality because they kind of reflect certain issues which are intrinsic to the human experience and existence. Also, everything is political, no matter how much we try to deny it. And me being made to want to travel and take cute pictures in Europe, when Europeans have been increasingly vocal about their racism and xenophobia, it's wild and weird, and it's dangerous for people like me whose experiences as racialized persons means they're unfortunately subjected or more vulnerable to harm that less visibly racialized people are. And also, as a black woman, this is for people who are like fans of France and interested in French culture, French society, want to travel there. I'm not saying it's a no, don't go kind of thing, but what I would say is just be vigilant, be careful, and actively seek out online creators who are black. black women, because existing as a black person is one thing, but existing as a black woman is also a different thing. The fact that you're a woman means you're vulnerable to certain things because of your womanhood, so take that into consideration. And yeah, make sure you seek out online creators who are black in France before these non-black creators bamboozle you into going to a restaurant where they won't see you because you're black. And I wish this was me just being extra, but the number of incidences I've had of black travellers experiencing this in Paris and France is too much. It's really not even funny. It's not like a haha one-off, that's bad, oh my gosh. It's like it happens too frequently, so please be careful and please consider that whilst you consume content like this. But yeah, I hope you enjoyed this light end to the season of the Much Ado About Nothing podcast. This is the last episode for a while, but I'll be back next year by God's grace. So follow the podcast if you aren't already, so that you don't miss out on the first episode of the new year. I'm sending you so much love, light, and strength in this season. It's a season of love and light, but unfortunately it's also one of darkness and pain for many. So if you have the means, and if you're able to, do consider donating to a charity or volunteering your time at a homeless shelter. You can check out Crisis UK, where I volunteer, if you're thinking about somewhere to donate to. But also just keep yourself accessible for your neighbours who might be older or lonely and live alone, or who might be working over the holiday season. Try offering them some of your food if you're on those terms with them. Feel free to offer some sweet treats. Just remind them that they're not alone, and you're thinking about them in this time. And if you're not good at cooking, don't offer them food, please. That's rude, okay? This is for the people who can throw it down in the kitchen. Yeah, if you're not one of them, don't do that, okay? Just send a tub of quality treats, that's okay. Or just have a couple of them in the living room, okay? But yeah, thank you so much for being a part of this journey with me. I appreciate you all so much for listening and for reaching out and letting me know you enjoy listening to me ramble. It really, really does mean a lot. So thank you. Thank you for making 2023 a pretty awesome year. And happy holidays. See you next year.